You know, I was thinking how awesome social media is as a tool, an expanded tool for all of us to learn more, be better advocates, share our stories, share our strategies, share our struggles, our victories, all of those things, as we're trying to help the system be better, okay, as educators, as administrators, as parents, as advocates. At least that's the goal, okay? And I might be a little Pollyannish, and I might still believe in, I am an idealist even at my age, and I really do try to see the best in people and in institutions. Now I'm still Gen X, which means that I'm also extremely cynical of institutions. Don't trust them, and especially my profession. I can't trust, okay? Trust but verify, all right? But as an IEP team member for my daughter, that's just sort of what we as parents that are members of an IEP team have to do, okay? And nobody on the school side should ever be offended by that, because, and especially depending on the impacting nature of the child's disability. And so, for example, my daughter couldn't come home and tell us how her day went. She didn't have the ability to do that, which meant that the amount of trust that we were transferring over to our school staff was immense and total. And so therefore understand the apprehension, the fear, the anxiety that's attached to that as a parent, sharing that responsibility with the school staff on helping our daughter. It takes a village kind of attitude, and that takes a lot. But I represent a lot of families that they're in the same position, and I know that school people sometimes misinterpret that. They shouldn't. Now, what the point of this video is that with how awesome social media is, there's also a negative component to it that I was thinking about over the last few days. And that is that it's made our world extremely small, okay? Meaning that our big world is now very small because, we can have friends, people we've never met that are, or people that have liked our page, or the people that are following us. The support groups that we have can be all across the country and across the world. And I think that's a positive. At the same time, it needs to be balanced with the reality that it also serves a divisive purpose, because what it does, it also removes you from the realities of your local community, where the most change can occur with regards to your school. And that didn't used to be like that. Prior to social media, your circle was your community. Your circle, by and large, were your support groups. There locally within your school district or neighboring school districts, coming together to formulate a plan and come together as a cohesive unit to get policy changed and compliance, things like that. I mean, and a true partner with your school system, because you knew everybody in your community, or most likely a lot of people in your community, which means that you are more of a partner even with your administrators and your teachers. Then what I'm seeing, the effect and the impact of social media. Like I said, there's a positive and a negative to every medium. And I'm one of these people with the expanse of history. This is a new medium, even though it's been around for 20 years, okay? 20 plus years now. I am wanting to point out and caution people on the negative. We need to look at that. We need to keep our eyes open. That if we truly want to be the change in our communities, we do need to look around more local and partner with those within our school districts, along with our administrators, along with our teachers, in order to be that change. Now, how does this apply to Section 504 IDEA? Guys, as far as IDEA and 504, it's the same law all across the country, okay? The IDEA has enhancements. You can't do less than the federal law. No state can do less than the federal law. They can enhance it and a lot of the procedures, they can have their own little words or acronyms, but the forms, like a prior written notice, it might have a different name depending on the state, but it's still a prior written notice because that's what the requirement is in the federal IDEA. That's it. Okay. So, just keep in mind that, when I'm giving you guys my input, or I'm sharing some odd thing that I haven't seen before, it's a one-off, hope to never see it again, then I'm applying the standard, the federal standard, first of all, but then also lacing in some of the intricacies that were applicable in that particular state. Okay, and I can't tell you which state in particular I was talking about, because I have offices, guys, in Alabama, Texas, and New Mexico. Now, we have licensed attorneys in some other states. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get a flood of calls where we don't necessarily have the apparatus to take those cases at this time. Okay, and I would love to expand and offer our services in a way that we do things all across the country, but we're not there yet. So with that being said, just keep in mind that there are nuances and differences across the country with regards to some of the procedures and rules, but you can't do less than the IDEA. And so a lot of what I'm referring to is what the base IDEA says. Enhancements, few states do enhancements. They do things a little bit different, but the one thing that you absolutely need to be aware of is that within the states that I have offices, each school system might have a different understanding and a different way to apply, and it doesn't make them right. Okay, and this is the thing, I read a lot of comments across social media, across the internet, where there's a lot of infused confidence that this is how my district does it. I'm sure, I do not doubt that at all, but be careful, because this is what I've been dealing with for 16 years. Is that this district does it differently than this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and none of them are right. Okay? Partially. Maybe 90% right, maybe 75% right. These are training problems. Now, according to the IDEA, the state departments of education have a responsibility to train and monitor local school system compliance to the procedures. They don't do a good job, guys. And most of the time, the school systems are sending somebody out to the state to be trained to have that individual come back and train within their district. It's an imperfect system with perfect intentions. And so I have more latitude. I've softened over the years. It doesn't mean that I'm not a tiger when I need to with regards to solving these problems, but I'm not ready to lop everybody's heads off at the school, because I've been doing this long enough to know that very few instances that I've ever run into are truly intentional. Like I'm out to screw people and I'm a bad person. So much of this stuff is accidental, and so much of it is lack of resources, lack of training, not being supported by the boards of education and administrators that are outside of special education that just aren't affected by this, that believe that servicing our children is a waste of resources, and they believe that sodding the football field is a better use of resources. Those people exist. It's just that because we live in a politically correct world, we've driven them underground. They don't want to talk about it. They hide the fact, they hide their bigotry. And it's easy to do that in today's world. And I'd like to see my bigots coming, quite frankly. And the thing is, we throw around the word even bigotry, but quite frankly, it's ignorance. And ignorance can be cured through education and exposure to what you don't know and what you're not around. That's how we cure it. That all the nasty isms in the world and all the fear and hate, it all centers around what you don't know and what you don't understand. Okay? Education cures that. So be careful in everything that you read or what you read, and be mindful that that's possibly a singular experience in a state where it's not being applied as it should, so that we're not perpetuating or contributing to these issues.